Good morning, Hunter. Wait, I just realized this lighting's wrong. I was wondering how long it would take for me to get to eschatological dread in these videos, and the answer is not very long. I fought it as long as I could. But what the hell? To some extent, I feel like metaphors in general were created because of pain, whether to describe it for outside comprehension or to shield us from it. We say phrases such as stabbing pain or freezing to death. We understand that these aren't literal interpretations, rather a shortcut into understanding pain outside of one's direct experience. Given our propensity to use metaphors to describe pain and/or death, the idea of heaven then, of divine reward, makes sense. It's a metaphor we created in order to feel better about death, about the uncertainty of what's to come. But hell... Hell, it seems, we created as a means to make us feel worse about living, or at the very least give us pain in life by obsessing over the promised everlasting pain in death. Before we go any further, I want to talk about hell as it's perceived in the West. Hell is a concept also found in dharmic religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism, but the concept of hell takes remarkably different forms in these religions. In fact, hell as we Westerners now know it, and will be discussing, comes primarily from a combination of artistic and societal depictions mixed with apocryphal texts of the Bible. The most famous of these is the Apocalypse of Peter. I'm dying. There's almost no mention of a punitive afterlife in Judaic faith texts, save for a few descriptions of Shul. No, not Zul, you Philistines. In the book of Samuel, when Saul is in desperate need to speak to the dead prophet, he tasks the witch of Endor to summon the dead, to which Samuel kind of grumpily asks,
"Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up?"
Which doesn't scream everlasting pain, but rather a deep and dreamless slumber. In the Samuel context, Shul is seen not as a place for the wicked or divine, but rather a shadow realm that all dead must pass through. It's not a liminal state like purgatory, nor an everlasting punishment reward like we Westerners tend to think of heaven and hell. It is the excommunication of consciousness. It's four-dimensional nothingness. In later rabbinic literature, Gehenna became associated with divine consequence as a resting place for the wicked. This is closer to the concept of purgatory, but still it's a place where the sinners must go to atone. Although its origins come from the actual Gehenna, a valley outside of Jerusalem that was notoriously hellish. Think Flea Bottom, but with more burning garbage and, probably the same amount of leprosy. It's not until Daniel that the concept of moral death began in earnest.
"Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt."
This, to my knowledge, is the first Abrahamic writing that connects how we live our lives with how we'll spend our afterlives. Then hell gets turned up, as the kids say in the New Testament. The kids still say that?
I love the young people.
The most fascinating part of hell's dominion over our corporeal fears is the fact that despite a few descriptions about hell in the Bible, our Western understanding of hell is largely derived from civilizational works of art. There's only between 13 to 25 mentions of hell in the New Testament, and that depends on which translation you're reading, as the words Gehenna, Hades, and Tartaros were anglicized in the King James Version, and most of these are mentions of the word hell, not descriptions of it. The most hellish description would be in Revelation 20:15.
"And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire."
And that's literally about it. So instead, our hell was created literarily. There's a number of wonderful pieces of literature that tackle these ideas, but the two I find to be the most important to our conceptual understanding of hell are Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy and John Milton's Paradise Lost. The former is the standard bearer for descriptions of hell. Dante subdivides the burning place into 9 circles of varying degrees of torture and suffering. My personal favorite is the second level for lust, which is described as a place where no things gleam and you are perpetually swept up by violent winds. It sounds benign and cutesy, but as Dante descends further into the depths of the inferno, the methods of torture are less cutesy and more cataclysmically terrifying. Milton's Paradise Lost doesn't necessarily concern itself with hell so much as the creation of hell, the fall of man, and the fall of Lucifer, who controversially was kind of an okay guy.
Hey, what's up guys? I'm Satan. Despite what you may have heard, I'm a pretty chill guy. I just wanted people to have free will, man. and God did me dirty. How could you do me like this, God?
Lucifer, like hell itself, has been transformed through the years. There's no actual Bible verse that says Lucifer is Satan, and the fact that we equate the two is precisely because of Milton and Paradise Lost. We owe so much of our religious understanding of hell to our metaphors and the imagination of our species. 115 miles northwest of Philadelphia, nestled in the hidden hills of Appalachia, sits a small town called Centralia, Pennsylvania. Hell on earth. Centralia once had a couple thousand residents in its prime, but for the past 60 years, a fire has burned beneath this small town's surface. The exact origins of the blaze remain somewhat a mystery. The most likely and agreed upon story is that in the spring of 1962, the town ordered to have a local landfill burned in an attempt to clean up the waste, because, I don't know, fire's cleansing? I mean, it's also ravenous, as the fire spread through unsealed tunnels that led to an abandoned coal mine, and thus a crisis of pernicious and existential dread was born. Anthropologists will tell you that our sapient forefathers crossing the narrow land bridge to Australia was as important an evolutionary milestone as the moon landing. When they arrived, they were greeted by an island brimming with millions of biological and botanical species. And within a short amount of time, geologically speaking, the population of the island decreased dramatically. Which is to say that everywhere we go, there we are, being a hellish, destructive force onto the world around us. The government claimed eminent domain in Centralia in 1992. The smoke that perpetually rises from the soil is noxious and unsafe for prolonged human exposure. This isn't to be confused with naturally occurring subterranean coal fires that do exist and are actually fucking cool, i.e. the Smoking Hills in Canada or the Brennenderberg in Germany. I probably butchered that. This is an instance where human mining or technological advancements had a negative environmental effect. See also Whittenham in Western Australia or Pitcher, Oklahoma. Centralia is an ecological disaster. It's definitionally horrifying. It's an environmental force that has no end. It's an elemental terminator that will forever burn. But we've never interpreted it as such. Instead, we've internalized it and consumed it in our entertainment. We've taken the real experiential dread of Centralia and used it as inspiration. Silent Hill, both the game and film franchise, are inspired in part by Centralia. Authors Dean Koontz and David Wellington have both used Centralia as a manifestation of hell. Albums have been written about it. Web series have been webbed about it. Is that a thing?
Up and away, web!
We can acknowledge the hells, we can even create them, but only by hiding behind our metaphors, our protection from pain. Today, Centralia is mostly abandoned, a ghost town that consistently finds itself on multiple most haunted places in the world lists. And while I don't believe in ghosts, I do believe wholeheartedly that Centralia is indeed haunted. It's tormented by the specters of human destruction, by the phantom of human fallibility. I know no way to get us out of this hell corner that I just put baby in, so I will leave you with this quote from Dante himself. It's simple, yet effective. The path to paradise begins in hell. I'll see you next week.